Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Adelson, and today I'm going to be talking about the neurobiology of fish behavior and the evolution of cognition. First off, I just want to say that when we think about intelligence in the animal kingdom, fish aren't usually the first organisms that come to mind. We usually picture primates using tools, or dolphins working together to hunt, or perhaps crows solving puzzles. But if we really want to truly understand where intelligence comes from, and if we want to trace it all the way back to its roots, we have to start much earlier in the vertebrate family tree, such as our basal vertebrates, and that's why I want to talk about fish. They aren't just simple, instinct-driven organisms. They actually possess complex brains and advanced problem-solving abilities and surprisingly sophisticated social behaviors. And because they're among the earliest vertebrates, they are the earliest vertebrates, studying their neurobiology gives us a window into how advanced cognition evolved, not just in fish, but in every vertebrate lineage, including our own more advanced primates and mammals. First point I want to talk about is just neuroanatomical function in general. So let's start with brain structure. One of the most interesting things about fish brains is something called mosaic brain evolution. I studied this a lot at a research fellowship last year, and it is the idea that different brain regions can evolve at different rates depending on what the animal needs to survive in a given environment. For example, researchers Gonzalez, Voyer, and colleagues in 2009 studied dozens of cichlid species and found that certain regions, like the olfactory bulbs or the hypothalamus, could enlarge or shrink independently of others. That means if a fish's environment required better smell detection or more social processing, those areas would grow without requiring a lot of proportional change in the rest of the brain. Another example is with Pollen et al. 2007. They found something similar in Lake Tanganyika cichlids, one of my favorite groups of fish to look at. Fish, which are fish living in complex environments with a lot of intricate social hierarchies, and they had brains with specific regions enlarged compared to similar living relatives, which I think is super cool, especially because cichlids are super social fish in general compared to a lot of other fish. But it's not just that fish have interestingly shaped brains, they also share the same fundamental social brain network that's found in mammals and birds. Hence why we like to think of them as basal vertebrates. O'Connell and Hoffman's work in 2011 and 2012 show that fish use this conserved network, which is a set of interconnected brain regions, to process social cues and make certain decisions. This tells us that the architecture for complex social behavior evolved very early in vertebrate history, a long time before mammals even existed. I would predict hundreds of million years before that. Secondly, I want to link brain anatomy and behavior. Brain anatomy really matters most when it is connected to actual behavior. You can't really have one without the other. And in fish, we see a surprising range of cognitive skills. One area where this shows up is in numerical abilities. Agrillo, Mileto, Petrozzini, and Bizzaza in 2017 reviewed research across multiple species of fish and found consistent evidence that they can discriminate between different quantities. For example, knowing whether there are 4 predators nearby or 2. So they can kind of limit out certain areas where predators may be nearby or where they're more congregated. Additionally, Messina and colleagues in 2022 took this another step further, and they mapped the neuroanatomical pathways in zebrafish that handle numerical processing. This is a super big deal because it links a specific behavior, which is quantity estimation or numerical estimation, to specific neural structures. So brain and behavior are linked in fish. They also demonstrate abilities we once thought to be more limited to higher vertebrates such as ourselves, like self-awareness and strategic problem-solving. One of my favorite species of fish are cleaner wrasses, and they show this a lot. Coda et al. In 2009 tested cleaner wrasses with the mirror mark test, which is a standard method for assessing self-recognition, and found they could recognize their own reflection and even inspect marks on their own bodies that were visible in the mirror. So they passed the mirror test, which only a few marine organisms have been tested to do. Bashari and Gruder in 2006 also discovered that cleaner fish keep track of which clients, which are other fish they clean, how they behave cooperatively, and which didn't, and they changed their behavior accordingly. For example, they would stop seeing a client if they would try to eat them. Lastly, I want to talk about implications for cognitive evolution. And the examples that I talked about previously challenge the way we think about intelligence in general. Bashari, Wickler, and Frick in 2002 take a primate's eye view of fish cognition, showing that many of the problem-solving and social strategies we like to see in primates are also present in fish. That's not just really cool, it's revolutionary for how we think about evolution and intelligence. One of the clearest links between brain changes and evolutionary outcomes comes from African electric fishes, which my PI personally studied, and so they also hold a near and dear place in my heart. I think they're really cool. Scientist Carlson et al. In 2011 documented how these fish evolved expanded brain regions specifically for processing electric signals used in communication, which makes sense. They use these electric signals to communicate with each other, especially because much of their water is very turbid and they can't necessarily see all that well. They went into this even further, demonstrating how these neural innovations didn't just follow the diversification, they actually drove it. They drove the revolution. In other words, changing in brain wiring created new opportunities for survival and reproduction, which actually shapes the evolutionary paths of these species. So the brain drives the body's evolution, or behavior's evolution, which is super cool. Lastly, I just want to ask, why does this matter? Not just because I think it's super cool, but because studying fish neurobiology, we're not just learning about fish. We're uncovering origins of intelligence itself. We're looking back into the past by staring at organisms that are still around in the present. The same neural circuits that allow a cleaner wrasse to recognize its reflection, or a cichlid to navigate complex social worlds and environments, in many ways are the same as our ancestors, and the circuits that let us design technology now, write literature, and give speeches. Fish show us that advanced cognition isn't exclusive to mammals and birds like we once thought. It's deep, and it's ancient, and it's rooted in the earliest vertebrates, aka most fish. And understanding that not only reshapes how we view these animals, but how we understand ourselves and our own behavioral complexity. Thank you. I'm a professor. I don't have note cards, but I do have this outline that I have been glancing at for this speech. Thank you so much.